Hi, I'm Chris Stevenson, and welcome to Inside View. It's a program that we talk about things that are happening around in Calaveras County, things that are important to me and you. And I'm just a guy that lives in Calaveras County, just like you do. So in preparation for today's interview, which I think you're going to like, I watched an 8-minute video of a program called Emily's Dragon. It was a short thing. It was very well produced. It's about a little girl, and she battles dragons. She has a little plastic or cardboard sword that she carries under her belt and such. But it's not really about dragons. The dragon is a metaphor. She is actually battling an abusive parent and the things that she goes through. And it actually brought a tear to my eye. I'm not embarrassed to say that. Usually it's sports movies that bring a tear to my eye, but this one really did. It was very touching. And so I'm happy to be able to talk a little bit about kids and abusive and neglected situations that they might be in. And I'll do that with my guest today, whose name is Farrah Roberts, not Sarah Roberts, correct?
Thank you. Hi, thank you, Chris, for having me.
Welcome. So you are, I'm going to read it here, the program manager for the Amador and Calaveras CASA program, CASA.
Yes.
Which is an acronym for what?
It is Court Appointed Special Advocates.
And what does that mean?
So it is a term to reference a person who is a volunteer and is appointed to work with children who are victims of abuse and neglect, and they work in the court system. And the special title of court is really a special title. They are there to work with children on a volunteer basis, get to know them, and help speak out for their interest in the court system during hearings which involve their parents and sometimes other people. So
the reason that you're here today is that you could probably use 1 or 2 more volunteers. Is that correct?
That is correct. We are always recruiting, looking for people to volunteer to work with these children. It is a volunteer position that we train people pretty thoroughly and on all of the issues that kind of surface with children who experience abuse and neglect in all of the different systems. And we match them with children ages newborn to 21 who need somebody, one person who will be there and stand up for them and be their voice in the court system.
So even for babies, well, especially maybe for babies, you need an advocate. Because I'm sure there are other people in the system, but this CASA volunteer is someone that advocates for the child. And is it necessary that you have some special background, like being a social worker or an attorney or something like that?
No, in fact, the idea is that the volunteer has the layperson's point of view. They do not have the expert opinion. They bring the voice of the community that is supporting the child, and they bring an unbiased point of view to look at what's happening in the child's life and not the professional point of view, and can look at things through a different lens and provide a different point of view. Wow,
but it sounds pretty daunting to be someone that goes to court on behalf of a child. But I'm going to imagine we live in a rural area. The courts are not going to be packed. It's not like what you see on TV. There's probably not going to be some big guy standing in your face yelling at you. Is it a difficult, daunting thing, or is it not too bad?
It is a challenge that does require some commitment. The part of it is that the court system is lengthy, and sometimes justice doesn't happen right away. And what the volunteer does is they don't necessarily have to go to all of the hearings, but they have to go to some hearings that are the most important ones. And those are the ones where decisions are being made about the child and whether or not they are going to be returning to their parents or whether or not their parents' rights will be terminated. And so those are the places where the volunteer needs to be there. More than likely, most of the volunteers are not cross-examined by anyone. The judge will ask for input on cases whenever possible, but it's a very friendly environment. The main way that a CASA volunteer provides information is through a court report. And there are staff people to support them through the entire process, through the training. We provide them step-by-step guidance. We help them write reports. We help them refocus on things that are very important. And then when they find that there is something that is really bothering them, we find them the professional way to provide that information to the court.
Wow, it sounds like important, but also, and challenging.
Yes.
But also rewarding too. So,
it is a very rewarding experience. You get to meet some of the most vulnerable children, but they provide you a lens into something that most people don't get to see. It's resilience. And it's seeing kids that come through extreme adversity, and they teach you about forgiveness, they teach you about keeping it up, trying again, and just keep going. And it's something that is really kind of just valuable to learn from these kids.
So resilience, I can understand how that would be important to a child, but what are the things that the child needs that the CASA volunteer and the other people that are helping as well help to teach the child to, to come to this place of resilience? Sure. What are these things?
So the Harvard Center for the Developing Child has stated that the most important key factor for children having better outcomes is to have one consistent adult who is there for them. And what the CASA provides is consistency. And because when a child is in the foster care system, they will have many things change. They will have their placement change. They will move out of their parents' home more than likely and be placed into foster homes. They will have social workers that will last anywhere from 2 to 3 months, not necessarily through the life of the case. They can have therapists change multiple times during their caseload. So there's people who are walking in and out of their lives, not necessarily providing consistent care.
But I'm a little surprised that you said that these social workers and such change so often. Why is that?
It's because of different factors within the caseloads. They either have certain social workers focus on special parts of the case, or they might necessarily have have a personnel change within the agency. Not necessarily anything at fault. It's just the nature of the system, and it's the volunteer that we ask for a commitment to try and be the consistent person to facilitate the communication from one person to the next.
But you're not necessarily also asking them to be a therapist for the child.
Absolutely.
Because you're not going to be trained for that, are you?
Yeah, you're absolutely not there to be the therapist. And even if you have legal experience, you're not there to provide legal advice. You're there to offer friendship, mentorship, and just an extra eye in the room so that you can make sure that things are not falling apart for them.
Okay, how much time are we talking that our CASA volunteer might have to devote to, you mentioned a little bit of paperwork, going to court, seeing the child. How often do they see the child?
We ask for weekly time with them, so an hour a week. And that is, we're really flexible with people's lives. We talk to them as they're screening with us to figure out what would be the best type of case to put them on. If they have commitment to be able to provide extra time for a child that needs more attention, we will match them with that type of case, but we really take into heart what the volunteers' needs are. But we do ask generally 1 hour a week, and if that's in person or virtual or phone calls, then that's fine, as long as they're kind of keeping a pulse on the child. And like I mentioned before, we serve children as young as newborn, which you don't necessarily get to have a mentorship role with those babies, but what you can do is be in their home, talk to the caregivers, learn whether or not they're developing on an appropriate schedule, whether or not they are attaching to people around them, and if there are any red flags for how they're going to succeed in school in the early stages, because it's the early prevention that provides the opportunity to make change.
All right, so you got me. You're hooking me and reeling me in, and I want to be a CASA volunteer. So what's the first step, and what's the training like?
Sure. The first step is to contact us and give us a call, and we will set up an initial interview.
Or go ahead and tell us your phone number now.
Sure. Our phone number is 209-754-9816, and that's our phone number for the Calaveras office, and has a message line, and we can always pick it up there.
I'm going to guess you have a website as well.
We do. It is www.nexusyfs.org, and just click on the CASA tab.
Okay, Nexus YFS. That means Youth and Family Services. Nexus Youth and Family Services.
That is correct.
All right, so I'm getting away from the little topic we were talking about here about the training, but you lost me there. What is Nexus, and how does that fit into the whole scheme of things?
Yes, sure. Nexus is a nonprofit agency that is based out of Amador County, and they were the primary overseeing umbrella for the Amador CASA organization. The Calaveras County CASA organization only came on about 4 years ago.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because I read this. You started the program.
Yes,
right?
Myself and another.
Good job. I'm going to give you a virtual high five.
Thank you.
All right, thank you
Yes.
for everyone from Calaveras County. So you started the program. How did that happen?
I actually learned about the CASA program going through college and was able to work at the Santa Barbara County CASA program and learned about it there and just thought it was just an amazing organization, and it kind of melded together my two interests, which were working with youth and then the legal system. I had the opportunity to work in starting the San Joaquin County CASA program when I was going to school in Stockton, and being from Calaveras County, I knew in my heart that this was a program that was needed up here.
So there was no program before you started it?
There was no
Right.
program before I started.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Wow, so good job. All right.
Thank you.
Get me back into, all right, you reeled me in.
Right.
And I made the phone call. What's next?
So we set up an interview, we discuss your commitment, then we have you complete an application, and it kind of just covers the general information, your experience, your interest, and we do a very thorough background check, including fingerprinting, reference checks. We check your DOJ background, your Department of Justice background, and make sure that there are any disqualifying records. Which,
Okay, do I have a Department of Justice background report? I mean, we're not talking FBI file here.
Yes,
We're talking the FBI file.
We are talking about FBI files, yes.
All right, I don't think I have an FBI file, okay?
Right.
So I might be okay, but what might be a disqualifying thing that might be in your file that people might, otherwise think, all right, that doesn't make any difference. Why would they care?
The legal pieces that would disqualify you would be felony convictions or any issues that are pertaining to like child abuse in your own personal background. But we definitely look at that. We want people who have lived experiences and might have a different background, and so we work through what we can. But the other thing is you need to be 21 years of age because we are serving people up to the age of 21, and we need to be able to have at least some age advantage on them. And if you have a background in child welfare legal system and you might have someone who might be currently in the system, that might be a time where we say we can't take you at this time because you might be able to access information about your case that you wouldn't necessarily have privy to. So those might be some factors that would negate you, but I have not had to turn very many people away so far. So
pretty much if you're not just coming out of jail for, something bad, you're okay.
Generally, yes.
If you're a compassionate person and reasonably intelligent, can fill out some papers like kids, this is right up your alley then, right? Okay, so all right. Sorry, so now we're going to start the training program, and you had said that it only requires like a minimum an hour a week or so, but I'm going to guess that the training program is more than that.
Yes, the training program is rather robust. It's a 40-hour training. We've been able to shift it from an in-person training to be virtual, pretty much. We have an online classroom built up, but as we go back into having some more ability to work without social distancing, we might go back to classroom learning. We cover everything from the juvenile justice system, the dependency court system. We talk about court procedures. We talk about the development of the child. We talk about foster care, how there's a culture surrounding that. We talk about trauma-informed care. We also talk about cultural diversity and how there are certain laws that really require you to understand that. And we cover many different topics. Your training also includes 2 different court observations. You get to come into the courtroom and watch proceedings happen so that you get a feel for the flow of the court. Sometimes it's a little daunting because it's all legal talk, and so we try to explain what happens. And then once you've completed the training, you are to be sworn in by the judge. He brings you in and you take an oath of office to stick with the child, to make the commitment. You understand that you're working with someone who's very vulnerable, and that you are agreeing to confidentiality, and you're agreeing to help to work within the parameters of the court system.
That's a pretty good list, and you memorized it all. I'm pretty impressed. This is not your first day on the job, though.
Definitely not, no.
You're doing okay. All right, so I found it kind of intriguing. You said that the training program can be online. It's 40 hours. I could probably fit that into my schedule. Okay, but then I get to learn about the court system, and that makes I find that interesting too, because I haven't spent much time in the court system. So do you make, I'm going to guess that you make friends with people in the community too, and you learn from the judges and the attorneys?
The judges and the attorneys don't do a whole lot of the direct training, but as you're observing, you kind of get to learn the flow. Once you are at CASA, you do have a little more opportunity to speak to the attorneys, but you never really get to directly speak to the judge unless you're at the hearing, because that would be considered a conversation ex parte, which is not generally allowed. But our judge is very supportive of the CASA organization, and he does what he can to help us with training. He reaches out to us, and he always helps us with volunteer parties and stuff like that. He'll make an appearance, but he's a great guy and really supportive. So.
Okay, now you're reeling me in even more when you said parties. Okay.
Yes, we try to support our volunteers with different ways to get together, because you are working in a system that's highly confidential. You cannot talk about the cases to your family and friends. It is an extreme no-no. If you do that, then that's usually terms for us releasing the volunteer. But you need to be able to digest what is happening. These cases are heavy. They are dealing with subjects that people don't generally necessarily want to deal with. And so we bring the volunteers together to have the opportunity to kind of just feed off of each other, to get some ideas on how to work through their case, what their experiences have been, and how they were able to work through the emotions. And when we can, we provide food. So.
Hey, yeah, good. All right, so that's my personality. I kind of make light of everything, but you're right. It's a serious thing. And tell me a little bit about the difficulties that people will run into, and then we'll get to the good parts. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, but let's be honest. Okay, this is not all roses and candy and parties and such.
Yeah, you are dealing with issues with children who have experienced extreme trauma. So you might find that you're working with a child who has heavy behavioral issues and mental health issues, and they might be acting out. They might be moved placement several times while you are on the volunteer job, and you're feeling your heart break because you know that this child just really needs somebody to love them. The other challenges could be that the social workers, though they are a great partner with us, they can't always necessarily get back to us right away, and we may not get answers that we would like to have for our child as soon as possible. And so therefore we have to kind of really learn some patience and be there for the child and let them know as much as we know without necessarily getting frustrated, for them, and just kind of navigate the system. But there are definitely great stories to tell too. Okay,
and we'll get to that. But all right, so tell me about burnout. All right, so I know I work in healthcare, so I know social workers. I know there's burnout with social workers. Is there burnout with CASA volunteers?
Yeah, we definitely check in with them all the time as staff people. We make sure that they have an opportunity to talk to us and converse with us, their challenges. I'm happy to say we haven't had a whole lot of CASAs leave for burnout. Mostly it's because they're moving out of the area. And there is something called vicarious trauma, and sometimes you do have a lot of sadness and depression that can happen with this, but we really work through it with the volunteers. We kind of step by step, here are some things that you can do. If needed, we help to provide them a secondary person to talk to, but generally that's how it goes.
Okay, so the good part,
yes,
is that you're providing advocacy for a child to move them into a safe and loving home that will last forever. So tell me a success story.
So there are many ways that success happens with these cases. You can see it when children are completely reunited with their parents, when their parents have successfully completed their case plan. And what that means is they have either they've done their parenting classes, they have ceased using substances, and they have come out the other end a shining star there for their child and able to fully connect and recommit their lives to taking care of their child. And you see a change in the whole relationship. There's also the outcomes where the parents are not able to be successful in completing their case, and you have children who are adopted into loving homes. I have one CASA who has been working with a child who's been in the system for 7 years. His story is still in the middle right now. He does not have a happy ending quite yet. But what his CASA has done for him is he has been the only person there for him for the last 3 years. And most recently at a court hearing, when the child attends to, the judge asked him, "How is your CASA?" And he said, "My CASA is my family. He is the person I can turn to and be who I can know will be there for me every step of the way."
Oh, that's so nice.
Yes.
Like, you're going to bring another tear to my eye, and I don't want that. But thank you. All right, so tell me about funding, because funding will get in the way of all the best intentions. So how is it?
We are well funded at this point. We are funded through 3 different streams currently. But we are still a small program, so as we continue to grow, we are going to kind of burst out of that. We are first funded by the Judicial Council of California, who is the overseeing committee that looks at the judicial system. They provide us with some minimal funding to keep our general overhead going. We also receive some funding from Cal OES, the Victim Witness Program, and they provide us funding to continue to provide advocates to the kids. They've recognized that children who are victims of abuse and neglect are part of the victim system, and that advocates provide a very crucial piece into making sure that they get the services that they need. We also receive some private funding grants. CASA is a nonprofit organization, and we have had great funders in the area, like the Rotary Clubs here, and many of our other local funders here, and we use those funds specifically to fund things like outings for the volunteers, because the volunteers sometimes are out of pocket. We don't have ways to reimburse them for outings that they want to do. In fact, the local community foundation recently gave us some funding to really help with this, and it was really a challenge with social distancing to provide opportunities for advocates to do things in person, but we found ways to do things virtually. Like we purchased games that they could work on together, or puzzles they could work side by side. One volunteer even purchased 2 sets of books so that he could read a book at his home and the child could follow along at home. So we like the individual funding just so that we can add the little cream to the top and give the children an opportunity to experience some fun things.
Okay, so you're a nonprofit organization. So an individual that's out there watching the program today could make a nice financial gift, couldn't they? Sorry.
They absolutely could.
Tell them your phone number again, just in case.
Sure, it's 209-754-9816.
And can a person also make a donation to the Nexus Youth and Family Services organization?
Yes, and
as well?
if they byline it to the CASA program, then it goes directly to the CASA program.
Which we're all in favor of?
Yes,
yeah, okay.
thank you.
Because you're the director?
Yeah, yes.
Right? What else does Nexus do for the community?
Yeah, so Nexus has a number of programs. I said that they were primarily based in Amador County, but there are some programs that overlap into the Calaveras area besides the CASA program. They have a couple of programs that go directly working with kids who are in the school system who may be kind of in the very similar situation to those who are experiencing abuse and neglect but not have met the threshold to be a part of the dependency court system. We provide mentors to those kids, and they go into the schools and get to meet them. There's several different programs like the Youth 180 program, and that is kind of just working with youth who have challenges with substance abuse in their home and they need a place to kind of group. There's different counseling services, and here in Calaveras County we also provide some Medi-Cal assistance called a Medi-Cal Navigator, and they help people with applying for Medi-Cal benefits.
Okay.
Yes.
So if someone that's watching today is aware, perhaps in their neighborhood, whatever, of someone that they suspect might be abused or neglected, what can or what should they do?
It is very important, especially when children are not necessarily in school right now, that people who have eyes on children make a report to the child welfare system or to the local sheriff's office. It is, even though you might be scared about this situation, that you might be making the mistake about whether or not the child is really being abused, it is up to child welfare and law enforcement to flush that out, to figure it out.
And you certainly could do this anonymously as well, right? And that would be important to many people.
In the community, it is an anonymous. You can be anonymous if you are a mandated reporter, which generally are people who are paid to work with children. There's many different ways that you're a mandated reporter. You have to disclose your information, but you're protected under a number of different laws.
Yeah, as a nurse, I'm a mandated reporter. I understand that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no choice. So I see it, I got to report it.
Yes.
So, like when I'm talking with people, we joke. We do. And I very often have to say something to the effect of, now, you can't joke about this because now I have to call the sheriff.
Exactly.
But seriously, 911?
911, the local sheriff's department and I don't have the number memorized right now, but child welfare has a hotline to make those calls to them, and they need to investigate it generally within, I believe it's 36 hours that they have to investigate what's going on. And when, cases reach the level where CASAs are on the case, we see that those phone calls, they end up being part of the court system, and you can see how many years people have had an eye on this child and where they've really suspected abuse, and those calls are documented well throughout the child's childhood.
Is it a problem in Calaveras and Amador counties? Like when you look and compare our counties to others around the state and around the country, how much of a problem is it here?
Calaveras and Amador County have some of the highest abuse rates in the state.
Why?
Why is a really hard question. Yeah. There are many factors that factor into child abuse, and a lot of it kind of stems around what resources are available to families and what you're able to do as far as supporting families. And so Calaveras and Amador numbers really rival inner cities like Los Angeles. There are things that factor in, like employment. There's, poverty that also is a big factor. The ruralness and the isolation is a factor.
Has the COVID pandemic made it worse?
Right now, those numbers haven't played out. The numbers are currently steady compared to previous years, but I don't think we have seen the effects are yet, because children are not in school, where the primary mandated reports come from.
So you're going to keep an eye on the situation to see what pans out from this pandemic, right?
Yes. As my role on CASA, I also serve on Prevent Child Abuse Calaveras, and so we are very curious to see how this is going to play out. Okay, so
here's your last chance to convince somebody quickly. Or what do you got?
All right. Being a volunteer as a CASA is an amazing thing. You get to really commit to a child, and you get to make a real difference. You get to spend some time with a child who will teach you more about yourself than you ever realized. Yes, it's hard. Yes, you have an opportunity to make a difference, but what you receive in return is fivefold what you're going to give out.
Wow, that's beautiful. It's rewarding, challenging, but very rewarding. I want to thank you, Farrah Roberts, Director of the Amador and Calaveras County CASA program. So, hey, thanks to my crew back there. That's Ed Lark and Susan and Joni, and I appreciated for you to watch our program over the last 30 minutes, and we'll do it again one day. So for now, thanks for watching Inside View.